All right, is everybody ready? This is going to be our first video. This should be very excited. It's our first video together as a group. We're going to kind of take this one slow. I'll try not to do all the silly, goofy things that I normally do. Kind of walk you through how to watch a video because it is a little bit more than just hitting play and minimizing it and cleaning your room. Okay, although people did come back and do that when they reviewed for their test, right? And this awesome looking guy down here is me. It's the computer version of me. I do pop up on slides every now and then. It's important to pay attention to what I'm thinking or what I'm saying, because sometimes I'm trying to drop hints to you about these are the important things, these aren't the important things, these are things you should be thinking about. It's also important that you pause, rewind, rewatch something if you need to. Sometimes it's nice when a person is telling you a story and you wish you could just pause them and tell them to rewind a little bit and start from that spot. Now you have the power to do that to your teacher. You also need to pay attention when I start getting the magic pen going and I start drawing you pictures of things. All right, it becomes like I got an alter ego and I get to be a different person when I get my power of my pen. I'll definitely be pointing out maps and graphs and things like that that you need to know. All right, let's do this. First thing we need to do is we need to break down the title of the unit. And this is where Mrs. Elson's going to be happy because we get to put on our English hats, right? We're going to attack the title and figure out why they call it Reconstruction. Well, if we break it up into two pieces, right, Reconstruction, that's easy. Construction means to build something. Re means to do something again. So we are rebuilding the South because of all the damage that takes place, right? Looking at these pictures, doesn't look like a very exciting place to be, right? These would be, I know this one is definitely Richmond. I think all three of them are Richmond, right? Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy. This used to be a building. You can see it's not a building anymore, right? The North is going to, on their invasions of the South, they're actually going to be sieging cities and bombarding cities, right? And just whole towns are going to be leveled and destroyed. The South suffers tremendous amounts of dead and wounded soldiers. And then the next three are all examples of a strategy known as total war, which means you attack the enemy from a military perspective, but you also attack civilian locations, burn homes, burn bridges, things like that. And two generals you should know from 7th grade, Sherman, remember his March to the Sea, and Ulysses S. Grant, they both kind of brought that strategy in with them. All right. This is a pretty interesting map, and you may be like, oh my God, what's going on? Well, first you look at the key. The key tells you exactly what it is that you should be looking at, but I'll give you a hint. Okay, this right here, that's Orange County. That's where we are. This map breaks down all of the counties in the United States during the Civil War. Each of the colors is showing you a different battle, right? And you should start to kind of see a little pattern developing here that most of the battles are below that yellow line. Well, that yellow line is dividing the Union and the Confederacy, or the North and the South. Right? The reason why most of the battles are fought there was because the North, in order to win the war, had to go into the South to defeat the South and bring them back in. Now you will see a couple battles, right? For instance, Gettysburg is right in here. Right? Some battles did take place above that line. Right? Now it's up to you. This is your first work pack question. Right? You need to hit pause or space bar, whichever you're watching. If you're watching it on YouTube, I believe space bar is fine. And then answer the question as completely as you can. All right, you're going to need this work pack to be working on your mastery activities. So if you need to go back and look at it and rewatch the first part, please do that. All right, as we all know, Lincoln was president during the war. Okay, he had a very simple view on how he wanted to treat the South after the war. If you look at his inaugural speech after he won re-election, okay, he uses phrases like "with malice toward none," "with charity for all," "a just and lasting peace." He wanted to be very nice to the South. And you may start thinking that's kind of weird because didn't the South cause the war by leaving? And maybe you want to ask him that question. But guess what? I got to ask him that question. All right. So he and I sat down and we started talking about, what his plan called for. All right. He felt it was the president's job. He didn't want Congress to be involved. Right. And all he asked for was 10% of a state's population. 1 out of every 10 people, if they swore an oath of loyalty, that state would be recognized by the country again. He gave get-out-of-jail-free cards, kind of like Monopoly, right? He pardoned all but the highest-ranking officers. So he pretty much just kind of wanted to get things, get life going again. So I sat down and I asked him the question, why he wanted to make it so easy. And his response was, I wanted to reunite the nation as quickly as possible. He knew that if it dragged out, right, it was going to make things worse and worse. Right, here's a pretty simple chart that I found in case you're looking for, a little bit of a visual. Right, it's all pretty much the same thing that we just looked at, but this is an important box. Right, there were 3 southern states that accepted his plan, and they're recognized by the Union right away. The rest of the southern states, they kind of hold out. So even though his plan sounds simple, Congress is going to reject it. Now you may start to think, well, why would Congress reject it? Because the president, it was his plan. The reason is because Congress wants to have a more active role, and Lincoln's not about letting Congress involved. Right? One important part of his plan was called the Freedmen's Bureau. All right? It's important to know that the Freedmen's Bureau helps both former slaves and poor whites. I know it says freedmen in the name, right, but it helps poor whites as well. And it pretty much just provides them with the basic necessities, right? Also sets up schools and homes, right, in order to be able to help them recover after the war. This is a famous picture down here. This is showing a Freedmen's Bureau agent, right, trying to prevent conflict between 2 groups, right? This would be angry Southerners, and this would be freedmen. And we'll start to see that this conflict is not going to be prevented, all right? It's going to happen no matter what anybody tries to do. All right, this is your second workpack question. Hit pause, go back if you need to, but you want to answer those 2 questions as completely as possible. How would you describe his plan, and how did he want to deal with the South? All right, unfortunately, we all know that Lincoln gets assassinated before he's able to put his plan into action. His vice president, Andrew Johnson, this sharp-looking guy down here, he is going to carry on Lincoln's plan. He does add a little of his own little changes to it, but for the most part, right, he does keep Lincoln's plan going. This is an important note down here, okay, that he doesn't do much to help freedmen. Now that's not because he's not a nice person and he doesn't care about them, right? He just feels that that belongs to state governments. That's not so much the federal governments. This is kind of one of the places where he differed a little bit with Lincoln. He felt states should be responsible for it. One of the first steps the government takes to begin the Reconstruction process actually begins before Reconstruction begins, before the war ends. So in December 1865, we have what is the 13th Amendment. Right? The 13th Amendment is going to ban slavery, so no slavery in the United States at all, which was one of the big arguments that we had prior to the Civil War. Right? It's important. We're going to kind of have some practice remembering there are 3 amendments that you're going to need to know: the 13th, 14th, and 15th. And thanks to Mrs. Almec down the hall, the red team socialist teacher, right? We have a silly way of being able to remember them, but I'll save the silly way for when we learn the others. All right. While carrying out Lincoln's plans, Johnson is going to find himself traveling back in time to middle school. Right? He wants to be in charge. Congress wants to be in charge. Here's where the middle school thing comes in. They start arguing with each other. I want to do this. No, I want to do this. No, I want to do this. Nuh-uh. Yes, huh? All right. So anytime that Andrew Johnson tries to get some programs going, Congress is going to not support him. Anytime Congress tries to do something, he vetoes their law. So Congress eventually says, you know what, we're tired of fighting you, we're tired of disagreeing with you, and they try and have him removed from office. So they are successful in impeaching him, right? He's the first president to be impeached. And it's important to know that impeach doesn't mean remove. Impeach means you're just bringing formal charges. Right? They attempt to remove him, and they're not successful. But pretty much, Andrew Johnson gets the message that he's not in charge anymore, and Congress now controls Reconstruction. And we'll look at what they do in the next video. All right? Here's your final workpack question. You know the drill. All right? Hope you enjoyed it. A lot of them will get a lot easier and a lot funnier as we get going. I just wanted to be nice and simple and show you what you need to do.